Welcome to Charts Today. It is Thursday, the 20th of August, and we start by looking at the dollar index. That is yesterday's candle there. It fell quite heavily yesterday, and of course, the candle shuts at midnight and starts again because it's traded 24 hours. But if we look at the 60-minute chart, we see how the dollar just fell away there, and that has broken to new lows. We talked about that during the week, and we can see here. Even though we have an upside target, we have a downside target. It's a pretty mixed picture on that daily chart. The weekly chart is subdued, and so we are just seeing dollar weakness. And that means, of course, then we're seeing euro strength. This is the long-term chart. It's effectively an inverted chart of the dollar index because the euro is the main constituent. Japanese yen, we are seeing, even though that dollar is weaker, the yen weakness is also that's dollar strength rising up there, but the yen actually had a stronger day yesterday. And we're looking at sterling just breaking a little bit higher there on the medium-term chart. And if we look at the daily chart, that is looking, sorry, the 60-minute chart, that is looking pretty strong. So that is quite key. So we are seeing that sterling looking higher there. And if we don't have a clear target. We've got 139 that was given a long time ago. So that we're discounting that slightly. Looking at sterling against the euro, it's largely a sideways chart here, not much action. We are seeing the euro strength probably gaining there. And against the Swiss franc, that moves quite significant as well. And against the Aussie dollar, one I watch quite a lot with Aussie investments and my home country, we're seeing here that's potentially that rate moving lower, so dollar stronger, if you like. So really quite key. One of the currencies that really is a little bit of a concern for the dollar is the Chinese yuan. And this has really sunk lower. And if you look at the daily chart, that is breaking to new lows. That's a real trend there. And if we're looking on the weekly chart, you can see that almost like a double top pattern there. That is the yuan. Dollar buys less yuan, basically. So that is a really clear trend for the dollar. So certainly one worth watching. Indian rupee. That is showing weakness against the dollar, so that's even weaker, so that's not so good for the Indian economy. That's inflationary, of course. And the South African rand is one that we've talked about quite a bit long term here, that the dollar is buying less rand, and that trend is quite clear when you look at the daily chart. And certainly a move below 1550 would be significant. So coming back to Bitcoin, still looking, is trying to break the cloud there on the daily chart. On the 60-minute chart, it has jumped, so that is quite key. But the weekly chart is still pretty bearish. Remember, looking at those multiple time frames is absolutely key. Looking at the Nasdaq, the actual index itself, struggling to make new highs there. We'll look, chips are holding it back at the moment, and we'll look at that in a minute. We're seeing here how the S&P is looking stronger, having broken to new highs in early August, and that's divergent with the Nasdaq, so really quite key. FTSE is down about a third, and the DAX in Germany also down about a third. Asia was stronger. We see Japan, that trend continuing, and even the Sensex was up nearly 1%. So the sentiment in Asia Pacific, we see Oz was also up a little bit higher. Brent crude, that is pushing higher still. We put our report out to clients this morning. Key thing here is we're remaining elevated. If we look at certainly some of the other products, sugar, one we've talked about quite a bit this week, that is pushing ever higher towards that 19 target that was given at 15.20. So that's a massive move for sugar. And then if we look at wheat, we're waiting to see if we activate that upside target. And corn also has an upside target, not quite making new highs yet. Gold is pulling back a little bit. So just short term, we did see that breakout with gold. So that was really significant, and that has broken that 44.50 level. So that is good news. We're just pulling back a little bit today, but we are breaking on that daily cloud. So gold and finding support on the cloud there. So gold is looking ever stronger and really in recovery mode. So that's one that we have been highlighting quite a bit. Silver, similarly, we're seeing there as well. Yields are remaining fairly steady. If we look at the semiconductor index, this is a little bit of a concern. Just quite interestingly there, this is the Philadelphia semiconductor. It is breaking back down and below the cloud. So real risk is if we break lower, and that would be the lower low. SpaceX struggled at 150. You can see that really clearly on the daily chart, on the 60-minute chart. We've got really a very mixed picture there. Those targets all indicating a bit of a mess, but 150 is the level that we've got to break above. We saw most tech stocks higher. Apple was better. The standout was Nvidia. Chips are falling out of favor at the moment and just struggling to make new highs there. And if we look at the Dow, we can see Merck, that was the really strong performer yesterday, up 12%. We talked about Merck this week being in an uptrend with upside targets, and that's where we've moved to. So really quite key. And then last of all, looking at the NASDAQ, what we see here is Strategy Group, which is the big Bitcoin play, recovering somewhat, but really in an awful trend. And if we go to the other end, what you notice is Seagate, Western Digital, Intel, all these chips stocks are really struggling. So that's quite an interesting takeaway. Last of all, a quick look at the FTSE. The big move today was not much going on the upside, but we have a very big move to the downside for JD Sports. That's down over 10% this morning, so that's really quite key. But a sea of red, even though we're seeing, even though we're seeing Asia up, Europe is largely down. That's it for today. Have a great day. Until tomorrow. Happy charting. Bye for now.